Welcome to Linux Saloon, a place to discuss tech, open source, and where Linux is always on tap. Each show will have a talk about Linux projects, such as a Linux distribution, a desktop environment or application. We also chat about the news or any variety of topics from the community. Anything that's Linux, tech, and open source related is on the table for discussion. I'm Nate. How is everybody?
Excellent.
Doing great, Nate.
Having a great weekend.
Fantastic. Yeah. So if you're in the U.S., you may or may not have celebrated Thanksgiving. It's my favorite holiday of the year because the only obligation placed on you is to make or bring food.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Best holiday.
Sounds good.
And I really like my family though, so like it's not a big deal for me that we play games, we have good discussions. It's sometimes play music. My family is very musical. I'm the turd of them all. But anyway, yeah, it's good times. Very busy week in that regard. So on this panel here, I have Jason, Starbuck, Colin, Peter, also known as the Solar Spider, Jinda, and Ben. You guys it's great to have you here. So on the docket for today, we're going to talk about BunsenLabs Linux, do a little housekeeping, and then we have a straw poll as well. But first, what have you been doing in Linux and tech? Peter, you, let's see, what up here? Our pal Peter has a podcast, or our pal Peter's podcast, for an alliteration, because alliterations are fun.
Technically not my own podcast, but it was hosted by a company. Very quick history, and I kind of went in, I go into it on the podcast. But I mentioned Biddle, I mentioned the Linux Saloon, because I've been part of both of these. It's been a while since I've been on Saloon, so I'm glad to be back. And so that's all part of this network. But Hacker Public Radio has been going for a long time. It's an audio stream of geeks and techies, and it says Hacker Public Radio, but Hacker is more like geek. And it's a fun place, fun shows, a lot of interesting topics. It's all volunteer-based, kind of like here. I'm going to put a link into the show notes, not show notes, the Zoom, YouTube chat to there you go. So Hacker Public Radio, and H2 HPR 4258. And it's my introduction to HPR and my history of computers. I think Nate got quite excited when I mentioned the Amiga on it.
Yes.
As he was
No,
and
not me.
so anyway, go have a listen. It's an audio stream. It's my first one, and so I'm now an official podcaster.
So do you have a link to the Oh, I see it's there. It's there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I put it out.
Okay. Cool. I'm going to copy and paste that and put that right in the show notes so I can make sure that the peoples can listen in on that. All right. That's very cool. So what inspired you to do a podcast? You just, besides the fact you have a brilliant voice and I enjoy listening to your voice, besides that fact that you just want to share that.
It's from a fellow group of friends who are podcasters themselves, from the Bugcast and from TuxJam. By the way, TuxJam had a new episode out today. And I chat with them, I listen to them. I'm a part of that community. And via that community, I got to meet a guy who actually is local to me. And I'll try and make this really short. A guy called Mark, who lives locally 30 miles away from Lexington, Kentucky, who was in a car accident at the start of the month. And I knew him online, but I went and seen him in the hospital and then the ER and then rehab. So we've actually met quite in person a few times. And he's a host for Hacker Public Radio. And he encouraged me to do my own show. So I did my own introduction. So it's via Mark, who's also called Archer72. He's become a really good friend too.
Well, it's rough.
And Mark's in the chat. He's in the YouTube chat. He goes, "I'm here." So everyone say hi to Mark.
Hello, Mark.
He's he's a car accident survivor and a fellow geek.
So, how bad was the accident? Like, was it one of those like Jaws of Life incidents?
No, bad enough to be airlifted to the hospital though,
Hmm.
and he broke his left femur.
Oof.
That that doesn't sound like a good time.
That sounds astronomically bad.
Yeah, so he's on using
sure.
a walker Zimmer frame right now, and he's relearning how to walk. Huh?
Wow, that's rough. I know. Sometimes, like I do things that are probably not the safest, and where I could potentially fall off a ladder, or I'm doing something else that's probably not a good idea, especially in the wintertime when it's slippery. And so, you're only one, poor judgment call away from catastrophe pretty much every day, if you think about it. Whether you're driving or working or doing something, seems like he says,
Head on.
Jaws of life, yes, head on. Ooh. Rough.
Not good.
Well, you can still, how are your fingers? Can you still Linux okay?
Oh, he actually uses the terminal on his phone. And yeah, he was he was trying to hack the rehab Wi-Fi while he was in there.
He was running Kali Linux, trying to break in.
On his Android phone, yeah.
That's awesome. Oh, and
We just call him Mr. Robot, is what you're saying. Gotcha. Okay.
so
great bunch of guys, just like this group is a great bunch of guys.
yeah, it's good to have a good group of people to we have our online folks, but also like in real life IRL folks. It's good to have some decent IRL folks as well. Yeah, because sometimes you got to move something or pick something up, and it's good to have somebody there to help you out for sure. But well, fantastic. Do you see yourself doing some more podcasts, or just like
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
And then-
I've got a couple of they take some of them. Some of the shows on HBR are like 5 minutes. Some of them are like an hour and a half. So it's really up to you. And it's of topics of interest to hackers or geeks. I plan doing one on my volunteer job with Mission Assist and using a lot of FOSS software for that. So that's my next planned show. And I also plan doing one on my workplace, God's Pantry Food Bank.
Cool. And then will that one also have a Linux bent to it, or is it going to be just whatever you're...
More a general. It's anything of interest to geeks. Huh?
Okay.
So.
Well, I like nerd stuff. I guess being Hacker Public Radio.
I'd probably mention I was IT there. I would put a little geek slant on it as well. Yes.
So, are you still doing IT?
No. But I am more a super user at the food bank. Yeah? So.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. Well, very good. Well, fantastic. Well, thank you for that. So I have to make sure that the link has been shared, and it'll also be in the show notes as well. So if somebody wants to listen to that, go right ahead. I will put it on my things to listen to tomorrow, because I'll be doing some things around the house. Probably climbing a slippery ladder at some point in time. All right. So Colin, you had something interesting to share as well. You just don't quit when it comes to your antics. What is it? You say?
I've been making a series of ISOs with Eric Dubois' Elsie Arch Linux Calamares installer.
Yep.
Because that's just the best way to install Arch, to be honest. But this is Cosmic. So I thought, curiosity got the better of me. I thought I'll see if I can, because I've got all these packages and I've just got to put the package list in and just change what I want to put in. So I've made my own packages for Cinnamon and GNOME and Cosmic and a whole heap of others. And then all I've got to do is change out the package list, and then it will make whichever desktop I want. So, and it's easy to install. And I'm just tracking Cosmic a little bit because I have a little bit of interest in that to see how good it is. But it's not too bad at the moment, but I'm expecting it to be better. So every now and then I just log in and see if there's any updates to Cosmic. But I don't think they do much updates. I think they wait till they do a major alpha release, I think. So it's not too bad. It's very interesting to be able to make your own ISO and put all the programs you want in it, and it's all there ready to go.
No, that is very cool. So when you do that, how long does it take to go from, I know if you're doing command line or if there's a GUI or whatever you're doing, but how long does it take to actually author or whatever an ISO?
Now that I've got it all set up, if it's from scratch, because actually once you run it, it's all there already. So unless you haven't done it for a while, then it's got to install the latest updates from Arch.
Okay.
So if I haven't run it for a while, then it could take anywhere from maybe 15, 20 minutes.
Okay.
And your ISO is done. So maybe half an hour, maybe, I think, something like that. But I just found because I found Eric Dubois' LC project very interesting. I was using Esnix's stuff for a while, but he didn't do GNOME. So I had to look for an alternative for GNOME. So I went on to Eric Dubois' LC. He's a bit hard to follow on his videos because he sort of gives you the information, but you sort of got to work it out a little bit yourself, which is, I'm okay with that because it just helps you learn, I suppose. But you don't want everything spoon-fed to you. So you've got to work it out. So he even goes to the point where, so I think I've mentioned before, I'm running my Cinnamon desktop here, which is my Arch Linux Mint distro, right? So I actually you can actually put some of the AUR packages in there, which is, the Mint's got the X apps. So you have to make them from the AUR, and that can be done during the build. So you can actually have your own AUR stuff put in, and he teaches you how to do that. It's really cool. So and then you don't have to install those on every desktop. You just pick and choose what you want to install, whichever desktop you're actually making at the time. So I've got it all set up in my little files. Well, it's in text file, and you just choose which text file you want for which desktop you're creating, and off you go. So you just right click and run the little file that he's got there. It's a what do you call it? You just dot / whatever the name of the file is, and it just sets it off in motion in the terminal. So it's really interesting project, and I really like it. So it's made me you learn a lot when you do stuff like that, and that's what Linux is all about, isn't it? Just learning. So I'm at the moment tracking this Cosmic one. It's interesting. I'm hoping to see some major changes soon. I don't know when the next update is, but I think it's on Alpha 3.
I can't help but think, like, I'm kind of envious of you because it's something I've thought about doing now for a while to actually learn the nuts and bolts and how all these things are put together and whatnot. And I never seem to have quite the time to be able to make it happen. We did like an Arch challenge here a while ago, and that was painful.
Yeah.
I had to lean on Eric a lot for that. But I guess it's a lot easier now. But then, but then am I learning in the same way? I don't know. So, but there's just so many things I have to do, and so I learn. It's like I learned just enough of what I need to do, and maybe just like a little bit more, to be able to finish the task, so that the next thing I have to get done gets done. And so I would say there's a lack of enjoyment in that, and sometimes I enjoy doing things, but like sometimes there's like when you don't truly understand something like in its depths, like you're doing, I kind of feel kind of a sense of loss, I guess, a little bit is what I'm trying to get at.
Well, I think if you install Arch, Arch has got a pretty new Arch install script now, which makes things even easier. But I don't like the one thing I don't like doing is creating my what do you call the files, creating your ext4 or whatever. I prefer to do that in a graphical environment rather than your file system. That's what I'm talking about. I just prefer to do that in a graphical environment rather than in a terminal-based environment, because I just find it easy. It's just the way my brain works. So, but the thing is, sometimes with my ISO, like things like Bluetooth and that aren't working. So you still got to remember how those things what the commands are, which is if you're running systemd, it's not that hard to remember. I still have to do a search, but what I do is I make I've got my YAD system, right? So I may add on to my YAD system that, so if I ever need to know the commands, they're in my YAD. So then I can look back and see what the commands are. But if I put it in there, I just have to press a button. So that's part of the learning process as well in my YAD script, which is that's incorporated in the ISO as well, which is pretty handy.
Is YAD your own personal recall?
They're all my personal scripts, yeah. So it comes up with a box, yeah, and you can, and it does so many things. I mean, on some occasions, I don't get my home folders, so I've got a little script that actually, you know how you've got a, what's it called, the user DIRs little in your home folder that it doesn't have the home folders in there. So I've just got a little script to press the button and it just fixes it all up. So
okay,
that's pretty handy. Yeah, so that's handy as well. Just those little things that you learn and makes life convenient.
Yeah, no, that's really neat. Yeah, I did mention earlier that Linux is Linux, and so it's like, what's the difference really between them? There's some I don't know who said something about it. I think was it Josh Allen or somebody in there that said something about like they use Kubuntu, and anyway, doesn't matter. So in when deploying like cloud init systems for on a Linux systems using cloud init for configuring them, I have to have things very different between like an OpenSUSE build versus a Debian, or actually, and Debian is different than Ubuntu and how they're deployed, because the like Debian uses something it's like net manage or net something. I don't know, it's something very specific, and then OpenSUSE uses the network manager CLI for like, so if you want to set certain IP ranges or set like static IPs or whatever you want, like set your network configurations. So like so how I have to do these different distributions matter in how I set up my init files, because just the core bits are just ever so slightly different. And anyway, so I think that's kind of fun. I tried to even rip out the whole network manager thing out of SUSE in the whole cloud init process, and then it became way more convoluted. And so I'm like, well, no, I'm just going to use what it natively wants to use and not fight it. And so like learning all that's been kind of fun. And if you ever get a chance to do something like that, to play with distributions and whatnot, I strongly encourage it.
Mm-hmm.
What am I going to do with it? I don't know, but it's exciting. It's fun. I like nerding out with it.
What you're gonna do.
Yeah, exactly. And I got to learn a little bit of SQL yesterday, because there's an issue with trucks coming into the plant. But anyway, so that was fun. But well, fantastic. So
I need to set up another Plex server, because I chucked away the one that I had an old computer, but I want to get like a small one. I don't know if a Pi. I've never bought a Pi before. I don't know if they're strong enough to run a Plex server. Would they be?
It is.
Yeah.
The latest ones are pretty good, aren't they?
Yeah,
I had the Pi. I had the 8 gig Pi, Raspberry Pi, and I use that for little. I tested out. What I did is I hooked up external drives to it for extra space.
Yeah.
And ended up actually getting it to boot from an SSD, so that it would be get the larger space on the boot, and then had it running different services. I forget what the name of the thing is called. What is that thing that does like the ad blocker stuff and all that?
Oh, Pi-hole?
Pi-hole, thank you. I had Pi-hole on there. I had Plex thing on there. I had all kinds of different things. But then I stopped using it because I have all this back here. So I ended up giving the Pi away to somebody that was in the Linux community. Not the Linux, excuse me, the Mac OS, Dave's stream community there. The other Dave Vintage Apple Tech.
Mm-hmm.
That group. It was just sitting in a closet. I was like, they wanted it for a project, and I was like, here, take it. Send it to them.
Yeah, they're fun little things to work with.
To buy it.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun, and they're actually getting. They're very powerful little for what they are. They can do a lot. It took some finagling to get it to recognize the SSD as the boot device, but once it was up and running, and it was fine.
Yeah, there's all kinds of just fun, silly things you can do with it. Anything from Christmas lights, tis the season, to
Yeah, you do yours, don't you?
Yeah.
With the Pi, isn't
Well,
it? You've got
I
all
use-
that set up.
I
with
use
that.
a Beagle Bone because it's a little, it's more I/O on it, and so it's a little bit better for that, controlling more things. But like for smaller deployments, it works just as well.
Yep.
And then but yeah, there's just all kinds of things you can just do with them. I mean, I run Home Assistant on a Pi 3. I have my Pi hole is on a Pi 3 as well. Although I think I kind of want to shift Pi hole now to being a VM on my server. I think I'm moving that direction with it, just because I'm just doing more with virtualization, and I kind of like it. So now I want to create like a weather station with one of these now. I think that'd be fun. But it's a list of things to do. Just another thing. But there's Pis are just fun to have. They're just, I don't know how else to put it. They're just it's just a toy,
Exactly. It's just something to tinker with, something to learn. Like you said, you want to do a weather channel thing. You might want to talk with Joe from the Linux, the Apple community, because he did something with a weather service thing as well. So he may have some insights for you.
Well, you have those weather stations that you can buy that like give you all the information. I just want to basically have it communicate with one of those and then provide that information to Home Assistant.
Wirelessly or something? Is that wirelessly?
Yeah, use like
Yeah,
900
okay.
megahertz range.
So what, you stick the weather thing outside and then it communicates with it and gives you all the info, is it? Is that how it works?
Yeah, it's like a big radio. Like, I mean, put on like your tower or on
Yeah,
the side of the
okay,
house.
That sounds interesting. Yeah, I've never really had a reason to buy a Pi, but now I think I do, because they're very energy efficient too, right? So, did the latest ones do you install with a micro SD card or with a USB?
You can switch it over to USB.
The new ones are USB. You can install.
You can do both, but you have to
can
do
both,
some.
okay.
Yeah, you can do. You just have to do a couple of tricks, and you can get it to run off the USB.
They also have allowances for NVMe as well, I believe. And then also what I think is really cool is they have like these little compute modules. So people are building appliances and using a Pi compute module, just popping it in there, so they can have they have a standard platform basically to develop against.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, there's all kinds of things, expandability and things that can happen with the Raspberry Pis. They are definitely cool and fun.
But you got to get an operating system to suit the Pi, though, right? Isn't it?
Well, there's
doesn't
tons.
run any
there's ARM versions of all kinds of different, obviously different Linux distros. You can get ARM. You can even get an ARM version of Windows if you really want to torture yourself.
No thanks.
At this point, you can get it's like shooting fish in a barrel. Everyone's got an ARM build, or especially a Raspberry Pi build for sure.
I mean, heck,
right, okay.
Mac OS runs on ARM devices now.
So this is a Pi 4.
Cool.
Actually, I put a UPS on it, but this is running OpenSUSE Tumbleweed, so runs it no problem.
That's the same. That's the same one I had. Same case and everything.
Yeah, I took the bottom off because I needed
pretty
a spot
cool.
to put a battery. But,
Yeah, for the
Yeah, they're pretty handy, those things, I must say. Yeah, I need to start playing around with those, I think.
It would be fun.
But
it'd be a
with
lot
the
of fun.
operating systems, is there any that are rolling distros, or you have to actually install them, or how does that work?
It's just like installing Linux on a desktop computer. I mean, you have your options to choose from, your different distros and different flavors. They have Raspberry. You have the RetroPie, which is kind of like a arcade. And you have like the Raspberry Pi OS itself. I don't remember what that's based off of, but you can install, like, he's got SUSE on there. You can get Mint on there. You can get all kinds of different distros have their ARM versions that can be put onto the Raspberry Pi. You just have to go to do a search and look up Linux ARM.
Yeah, okay. You need an ARM version. That's right. Yeah,
because of the use an ARM processor. So once you get the distro, you just use. They have the Raspberry Pi has its own tool that you can use to put it onto the micro SD card. Then you can just
Okay.
plot the micro SD card into the Raspberry Pi, and it'll boot up with whatever you put on there.
Sure. Cool.
And so there's an unofficial ARM, so you could probably build an ISO or an image or whatever for a Pi and test your Cosmic DE out on that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's pretty much endless options. With I wouldn't say endless, but there's tons and tons and tons
Yeah,
of
sounds pretty
options
good.
with Raspberry Pi.
That's also an OS though. Could probably put Endless OS on there if you really try. I don't know. There may not be an
you
ARM.
could.
Oh, Nate, there is actually LFS for Pi.
So if you have unlimited time and you like to hurt yourself a little bit, you can do that.
You can run Linux and Scratch on a Pi.
Yeah, you could.
And actually, I have done that. They actually have SD card images with LFS pre-set up, but you'd have to put the GUI on top of it, though.
Yeah.
So that's the only
sounds good.
caveat to that. But oh, and by the way, Nate, if there's time at the end, I would like to do a brief update on StormOS if we can do that at the end.
Sure.
All right, cool.
We'll just rename it the Ben segment.
Yeah, we can do that as a last minute thing. That's fine. Yeah.
Good deal. All right. Well, if you have not done that straw poll yet, go ahead and knock that out. I got a couple of replies here that I'm
straw
going
poll.
to read first. But the check out the straw poll. How has or what best describes your experience with BunsenLabs? So I'm gonna check and see if I got any responses here on. I don't think I do. Nope. Okay. So I do have a couple of replies that Eris put in here. So he first reply is installed BunsenLabs 32-bit on my Asus ePC or triple E PC. How are you supposed to say that? ePC? ePC. WNBC. ePC. 1000 netbook runs well. Telegram installed and it works fine. Another reply. Got it installed on a small virtual machine and played with it for a bit. It's lean and mean for sure, but that native browser needs some serious help. At least I could install Firefox. So, no, there we go. So go ahead and check out the replies here. I'm sorry, not the replies. Those were the replies. I'm going to check out the actual stats. Oh, welcome, Adam and Ron. Nice to have you. Eric.
Yo.
Hello.
So
Howdy.
the results are, number 1, it's amazing. Number 2 was Tux Penguin, which, what does that say? Number 3, it's good. 4th place, it's okay. 5th place, did not have a good time with it. Oh, no. And then I had another vote for not interested in this exploration. 1 vote for didn't have enough time, busy with work, busy with life. And another vote for not interested in doing this exploration. No for other. Or nothing for other. So, well, that was exciting. So it may shift again. Who knows? I think the poll closes sometime the next day or so. But so it's amazing was the first got top billing, which I think that's pretty cool. I like it. How many here actually gave it a try or had time to poke at it a little bit? So Jinda a little bit, Peter, but okay. Ron did. Ron's got all kinds of perfect hardware for that. So got all these he's got these ThinkPads that he's got on life support. So,
yeah, I've got a ThinkPad X31 from 2005, 32-bit, 2 gigs. It worked.
Hey,
beautifully.
If it works. Eric, did you get a chance to try it out?
I was gonna say I didn't try it this time, but I have used it in the past and I've always enjoyed. I just really think it's a clever way to have both a floating window manager and a tiling window manager set up on the same system.
It's definitely.
So what's the default desktop then? It's a window manager, is it?
It's Openbox.
Openbox, yeah.
Oh, Openbox. Oh, okay.
So it seems to work from my perspective. It worked really well. It just, I mean, honestly, I don't know what the difference is between a window manager necessarily and a desktop environment, because to me, an Openbox is a window manager. It's like the underpinnings for the desktop environment. So I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what I'm looking at, I guess is what I'm really trying to say. But let me get into let's get right into the disk exploration. So the rules are, the intent is to talk about the different aspects of the operating system and discuss the experience from using it. This is a discussion that by which should be objective and constructive. So non-objective opinions like this is garbage is not really helpful, but rather if you say I wish it had a specific feature, or they need feature X, Y, or Z to allow me to do whatever it is to really benefit the conversation. So the point of this is to highlight the positives, but not to ignore the lowlights of the project. Remember, this is a labor of love for some, so let's not poo-poo on it. So when it comes to ISO options, you have a 64-bit and a 32-bit. I didn't see an ARM version, so I don't know that exists. And then they have a so it's neat to have a 32-bit version. Seems like it's well suited for that. And downloads. Those aren't particularly large ISOs either. So basically, the installer is a Debian installer, essentially, with some rebranding on there. And Ron, you said you installed it?
Yes, I did. Actually, on 2 machines. One of them is in front of me right now. Yeah, I liked it. It was seamless for me. I didn't have any issues with the install. Didn't care for the built-in browser. I don't even know what that is, so I just installed Firefox. The key bindings were a little off-putting. I'm kind of used to the Control-Alt-T for a terminal, not Super T. But the Con key helped tremendously, so now I'm a fan. Not a fan of the vertical taskbar, but I could live. I didn't want to change anything except for that browser. I liked it. I still like it. Pretty Spartan looking, but I'm a big fan of XFCE, the world's best desktop. So going to a Windows manager like this, not an issue.
So maybe I did something wrong, but I got Firefox by default for the web browser.
Yeah, so did I.
Oh, I'm on the 32-bit one here.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm
32-bit comes with Dillo.
Okay.
Now, mind you, on Firefox, my YouTube playback, I was kind of, because of that older machine, I had to go with a 360p resolution on my videos.
Wow.
Which is pretty awful, but
Did you see anything?
it was acceptable at 360p. 480, just no, too many drop frames.
So, I mean, 480 is what we watched for forever, basically. I don't know what people are so bent out of shape about when it comes to like 480p. I mean, come on.
For me, it was a black and white TV.
Right. You had like little rabbit ears on it. Maybe put some aluminum foil in between. So
Absolutely. Newly arrived to Canada, and because it's a hand-me-down, the screen is very dim, and the only way to watch TV is to basically drape a towel over your head and the screen and sit right up front to it. So, God, I wish somebody had taken a photograph of that.
That would have been pretty brilliant.
Oh my gosh, that would have been amazing. Put me in my place later on.
That's pretty hilarious.
Yeah. So yeah, it was enough to make me feel like I should keep it on the machine, or maybe even try MX with just a Windows Manager.
So I kind of feel like this is just, I know they're not related projects, but MX and BunsenLabs are kind of in my same category of like lighter weight distributions.
Mm-hmm.
Although
They're both Debian.
MX says they're more of a middleweight though. So, I mean, for what it's worth.
Yeah.
So I guess a little bit about BunsenLabs if you know anything about it. So It's a distribution that offers it's a lightweight, highly customizable desktop experience based on Debian. And some key points about it. It's a continuation of CrunchBang. So there's a questions about what is CrunchBang. So BunsenLabs emerged as a community-driven project to continue the legacy of CrunchBang Linux, which was popular for its minimalist approach and ceased development in 2015. So some of the features, it's Debian-based. It's built on top of Debian. So we got all the stability with the repositories there. The latest release is Debian 12 Bookworm, and so that's the Boron release of BunsenLabs is built on Bookworm. Uses Openbox Window Manager instead of using the full desktop environment like GNOME or KDE Plasma. So BunsenLabs uses Openbox, which is very light on system resources, making it ideal for older hardware or for users who prefer a minimalist setup. I've determined that I don't think I'm a minimalist kind of guy anymore. But anyway, so customization, the menu system utilizes a feature-rich desktop menu called JG Menu, kind of like JG Wentworth, I suppose, which can include icons and is highly customizable. The panel uses the Tint 2 as its panel, which can be configured to appear at the top, bottom, or sides of the screen. So Ron, you can change that. So the latest release features a vertical Tint 2 panel by default, giving it a fresh look. They offer various themes, including the Blob Theme Manager, through the Blob Theme Manager, allowing users to change the look of the desktop easily. Now, I will say it's kind of got a dark theme by default. I like it. Very happy with that. No need to change it. So perfect. It comes with a pre-configured Conky setup for system monitoring, which can be customized or turned off if not needed. It has lightweight applications, so pre-installed lightweight software like, I wouldn't call it lightweight, Firefox for browsing, Genie for text editing, and Thuner for file manager for Microsoft CE, ensuring that the system remains fast and efficient. So we talk about the installation. It's based on Debian. So they kind of go for performance. They have a pretty active community. Customizability is one of their key focuses. So users can tailor it to almost every aspect of the desktop environment through some text editing, through text file editing, I should say. So BunsenLabs is not ideal for the absolute beginner due to its minimalistic approach, but it's well loved for those who enjoy tinkering with their system configurations. So it inherits the Debian stability, making it a reliable choice for users who want Linux environments that don't require frequent system updates or risk breaking changes. So that's that would be BunsenLabs. So for system requirements, they have a minimum of 1 gigabyte. And then recommended is over 2 gigabytes, and the hard drive recommended is at least 20 gig. So that would place you like in the mid to late aughties, I think, for computers of the time. So as far as like applications, did because it's Debian, was there anything you didn't have or couldn't get?
I did do DistroBox and it was out of date. It was pretty old.
Oh, was it?
Because when I went in BoxBuddy and went to view applications, it doesn't work because it's so out of date. So I just installed the script, just install it from GitHub or whatever, and it updated it naturally. And then when I went into BoxBuddy, it popped right in, and I could transfer my applications over with a click because I'm lazy and didn't feel like typing in the command.
I like
but
it. You're so lazy you built yourself a whole system. Is what you're telling me. You're so lazy you built yourself a whole system to move your applications around.
Yeah, pretty much. But it's a potato. It's what is it? It's a Dell Inspiron 14. The benchmarking I think was like 500 on the processor.
Nice.
It's a Intel Celeron N3050. I mean, this is such a potato. Firefox would run, but I had to switch over to Falcon. I think that's KDE's web browser.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it seemed to have a little less power than it needed.
Okay.
But screwing around with it, I'm real happy with it. I had a very good time. I didn't have any issues whatsoever with it, considering what I'm running it on.
Gotcha. Well, that was a cool kind of a neat win there. How useful would you say that computer would be with that? I mean, obviously it'll be slow, but do you think it's like too slow to be useful, or would you
No.
say
No.
No, not at all. I mean, you can't push it to, there's limits that you can't do. I mean, you can't open up three web browsers and watching videos on all of them.
Right.
But, you can watch a video on it. Sure, YouTube does take time to load, but once it gets running, it's okay. It's not great, but once again, the screen isn't that good anyway, so you can knock the resolution down. It isn't going to matter.
right? Now,
It's a game you have to play.
so Ron, you similar to you, you think would you say it extends the life? Would you say it's lean and mean enough that it would extend the life of some of your geriatric hardware?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, on mine, I got into LibreOffice, right? And the calc thing. So I use both. They work perfectly fine. Just switching between tabs was pretty quick. But all the pages I was visiting were pretty static pages, like a bank account and Intel's website, stuff like that. So very pedestrian, use. No video whatsoever.
Very, very pedestrian.
No,
like that.
no, no encoding of this, that, and the other thing. The only shortcoming is really a shortcoming of the PC or the laptop. The screen is very dim. Battery life is about 45 minutes, if I'm lucky. So, so the machine is, the screen brightness is the issue. Battery life is the issue. But plugged in a dimish room, it's all good. And the default dark look and feel was very much a plus. So, yeah, absolutely.
Now, Peter, you said, what did you install
Okay,
on?
so you mentioned the EEP. I have a hard time saying it. The netbook. that was my reply. That was my comment.
Oh, okay.
So I have it installed on my EEE PC by Asus netbook, 32-bit. This machine has two really old style SSDs pre-installed. It's got an 8 SSD and a 32 SSD. So I love testing distros on this machine because it has the two drives. I try to put root to the 8 and home to the 32. And by the way, the installer worked great, no problem. I installed and set up root and home, no problem whatsoever. A little bit of history. Same machine. When Biddle was doing a BunsenLabs show, just like this one today, BunsenLabs would not run on the same machine. That was a few years back. It would not install. I ended up having to use another CrunchBang alternative to test with. But BunsenLabs would not install on this machine, but this version of Boron installed just great. As for usability, it works fine. I mean, see, it doesn't. I'm not going to do video work or anything on it. In fact, I'm planning doing a couple of emulators, like my Oric computer. Put the emulator on there, and it's a great little machine for emulation work of 8-bit computers. It's fast enough and good enough for that.
Yeah, we did that 2018 in December.
There you go. Yeah.
So
I was
6
on
years
that show.
ago.
Yeah.
6 years.
Back in the day.
Wow.
And by the way, I remember telling my workmates and some kind of geek guys, but mostly Windows based. I was mentioning about BunsenLabs being a CrunchBang alternative, and they all recognized CrunchBang. That was quite a popular name back then. they all, oh yeah, I remember running CrunchBang, and so it was quite it's a nostalgic name for a lot of people, even today.
So, looking back at the so I did write an article on it when I tested it out last time, and a lot of it very similar, but definitely some changes they made. And I will say I do like the changes that they made. I know Ron doesn't like the bar on the side. Got it, fine. But by default, they have a dark theme now, which I think looks far better. It just has a better look to it. And then being on the side and then using like the I don't know if maybe it's a more efficient usage of space. I don't know.
I think so. I'm learning to tolerate it.
Okay.
I think it's better on a laptop. I really do. I think on a desktop, I always go horizontal, and on a laptop, I always go
Yeah.
vertical.
On the netbook, it actually works on the side because of screen space. Yeah.
Well, my laptop is a 4:3 aspect, and so it's 1024 by 768 res. So having it at the bottom side doesn't really make that much of a difference.
So I think with a 4:3 aspect ratio, I do think bottom is probably better
I think so too.
because I think you want all the width you can get on a 4:3, but like on a 1610 or 16:9, you can lose some of the side and you're not going to notice it. I think, but I could be wrong, and I've been wrong before.
Good thing about
Well, that's-
Openbox and Tint 2 is it can be configured. You can change it. So
So that is nice, and I do like the very clean look of it now. Like if I'm looking at the screenshots from the last time I looked it over, and I think it's a little bit cleaner looking now, and maybe it's just me, but it just has a cleaner the taskbar. Maybe Tint 2 is probably better. So, and I do like the shortcuts on the desktop because I wouldn't know that otherwise.
Especially when you're switching back and forth.
yeah.
Yeah, and the fact that it does have tiling is pretty cool. So, you can do half, quarter tiling. But yeah, I think that's pretty neat. And yeah, I didn't try running any app images on it. I was curious, but I didn't. And then Flatpak did anybody try running any Flatpak on there?
Yep, works fine. No issue.
Yeah, I didn't think it would be. What do you think of the right-click menu system? Do you like that, or what are your thoughts on that? Or we can also hit meta too.
That's fine.
But
It didn't bother
Yeah,
me
it
at all.
works. Yeah.
Works.
yeah, and the thing
It's
about
pretty old school.
it is
That open box,
Yeah.
sort of other window managers, well, not window managers, other floating, window managers have done
Yeah.
that in the past. It seems redundant in some ways, but if you think about it, not everyone had a start menu,
Yeah.
like had that the central or fixed location on the screen for that. So you kind of, and was that an old Mac, like OS 9 thing, where you could right click on the desktop and get menus? There was some other more recognizable system that did that. I don't remember now.
I want to say CDE, the not so common desktop environment, that also had that feature.
Gotcha.
Common desktop environment.
Now,
Yeah, and
and
CD.
you said it was a right click. It's also the super key. So it's
Yep.
the same menu.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
If you go into the menu and you go down to system settings and then install, you go over to, it says install favorite packages. And it has a whole bunch of choices for you to install some of your favorite stuff ready to go. So if you want Chromium, there's a button for it. You know what I mean? There's a button for like all kinds of fun stuff to install, which I thought was kind of nice to add that instead of, filling it up with a bunch of junk you didn't want. You could actually pick and choose.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. You can install Dropbox.
Yeah. I liked it that you could do like Inkscape and GIMP and stuff like that.
Yeah, I noticed it looks like primarily these are all GTK based applications
Yep.
and not Qt. Oh, K3B, that's a cute one. CD DVD burner. Yeah, it's pretty Pretty wild. Simple screen recorder. I thought that was. Well, I don't know. Yeah, it's pretty great.
I missed a piece because I accidentally had a hardware fault. But did anyone report as to whether or not it ran better on lower end hardware? Because that's, I think.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I got 2 gigs of RAM and a potato for a processor. It's cooking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, my machine has 2 gigs also, and the commit charge from cold boot was about 470 megs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm installing Chromium right now, and RAM usage is 551.
Nice.
Okay.
When I ran Firefox, RAM usage went up to about 880, 860.
Yeah, that's why I switched over to Falcon.
So then, if you had 4 gigs, this would be usable.
Yeah.
I mean, beyond
yeah,
usable.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I wonder
I'm
how
too cheap.
flat. Sorry.
I'm just too cheap to go buy a laptop.
I wonder how
is that.
Flatpak would behave in a 32-bit version of it.
Oh, I don't know.
Are Flatpak apps available? I didn't even think of trying that.
I never would have thought of that.
I will keep it going for a little bit longer just to give it a shot.
I don't know that there are 32-bit Flatpak. Like, I don't think that's a thing.
I don't think so either, but I'll be curious to find out.
I mean, Debian's got a pretty good
Yeah.
complement of applications. So you're probably fine with Debian just as it is.
Yeah.
So that's my unprofessional opinion.
I just like to be ridiculous when I can.
Oh yeah. No, I definitely think I definitely think that if you're going to if you're gonna go crazy, go full crazy. There's nothing.
Yeah.
There's no shame in that.
So
And
from
BunsenLabs
Flatpak's,
sorry.
I was just going to say, from their documentation, they have multi-arch support. So for what it's worth, they have
Wow.
multi-arch, multi-lib support, running 32-bit programs. So there's a section on their docs.flatpak.org that explains that.
Nice. I'll be curious to see how much of a dog this will behave like then, because I'm running off a hard drive. So
Ooh.
Mm.
That's where we get the
Oh,
CrunchBang from.
speedy puppy too. It's 5400 RPM.
Dang.
Well, one of the things I did do was I did install ZRAM to speed it up,
Mm.
ZRAM
which
sped
I
it up?
always do. Oh yeah, ZRAM would, because
Really?
you're not using the hard drive as a swap. You're using part of the memory. Why is it speeded up? I really kind of don't understand it, but I know it does.
I know it's compressing.
Yes,
Storing compressed data into memory as swap.
right. Yeah,
So
it runs better with it. So
see, I would have thought, and this is just my assumption without doing any research ahead of time, like just what I assumed was that by running something like ZRAM, you would have a loss of performance because of just the amount of processing power it would take just to decompress that. But I guess it makes sense to say that you still have more of a bottleneck going to the hard drive than you do with that.
yeah, exactly. The hard drive is such a bottleneck. Well, this is a 32 gig SSD. It's not even a hard drive. It's like a little tiny flash drive that they've soldered to the board.
Yeah.
I mean, that thing is as slow as it comes. So once I did it, it sped it up.
Spare no expense on that one, I guess.
I downloaded more RAM. That's basically what I did.
Nice. Yes.
So I was about to say
That's
that
great.
BunsenLabs actually has its own backports repo as well as have it using the Debian backports repo. So it's might not be the most up-to-date software, but it's a good range.
I mean, I'm not really sure. So, I'm all about the new shiny. Don't get me wrong, but I do think that there's a place for. I mean, how new and shiny do you really need to be productive?
Exactly.
I mean,
Yeah, I think the old
guess it
apps
depends
are
on what
probably
kind of
good enough.
productivity you're doing.
Hmm.
'Cause, I mean, if you're doing like being a video editor and that kind of stuff, you might need a little faster oomph. But if you're just, daily use, you could use potato any day.
Well, what I mean though is that do you need the do you absolutely need the latest and greatest? Now, mind you, I'm coming from Tumbleweed, which I always do have the latest and greatest. But from a realistic perspective, do you really need to have the latest and greatest software? What are you really gaining at this point? It almost seems like many things in the Linux world at this point are not really rapidly changing. It's more incremental updates, So I mean, Debian 11 doesn't feel all that different from Debian 12 outside of maybe like Plasma. So
depends whether you're using like a LibreOffice doing some sort of writing or Excel or Calc work that you may need some specific updated function. That's the only only thing that I could see that you probably need more updated
If you're looking
software.
at an OS standpoint, just as the you need the most latest and greatest version of the OS that you're using. I mean, that's gonna I think it's always good to keep it up to date for security purposes, and feature purposes, security purposes. So I mean, do you need it? Probably not. Quality of life, perhaps so.
that's fair. I mean, that's why you have, that's why restaurants have menus. That's why we have different distributions, right? It's kind of choose what your taste, as it were.
Yeah, that's why I got DistroBox on here. I'm running Fedora.
Can you run DistroBox on a 32-bit?
I don't know. I never tried it. This one, I put 64 on it. Even though it's only got 2 gigs of RAM, I know it will run.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
But Fedora loads up and runs fine. It doesn't even know. When I click on the applications, it doesn't seem to be any different.
All right, I do have to read this. Deploribus Rex in the chat says, I remember thinking I was cool for getting a Tandy 1000EX with a 5.5-inch floppy disk drive, upgrading from the Commodore audio cassette. LOL. We've come a long way, baby. I like that stuff. Makes me happy. I never had a Tandy. It's possible maybe someday. That's pretty cool. So, do you see yourself continuing to run BunsenLabs or keep it running on something at this point?
Oh, I'm not taking it off the laptop. It works fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm leaving it on the book.
I wanted to install it on a 32-bit laptop that I have, but my son has commandeered it, so I didn't.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. He likes messing with old garbage now. I don't know why he likes that. I mean, where does he get that idea from?
Who could have influenced him? I don't know.
Yeah, an apple and a tree comes to mind too.
Oh, he's got an iPhone too. You mean that kind of apple? Yeah.
I remember quite a few years ago, a work colleague had an ePC and he had Windows on it and it wasn't functioning at all. So I think I put MX Linux on it and it was running really good. So I don't know whatever happened to it after that. But I remember MX Linux ran pretty well on that thing.
Well, I know.
Yeah, that was 32-bit Debian as well.
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
I know that there are as things continue to move forward, software tends to have more lines of code in it. So I kind of wonder, like GTK 4, is a little bit heavier than 3, and 3 is a little heavier than 2. But what are we gaining, like really ultimately with that? I know it's basically to accommodate newer hardware that has more, to be more flexible and be more of a framework as opposed to being something specific. But I kind of wonder, like, what's the when I run XP on an old system, I'm impressed by how fast it can do what it does. Now you can't run on newer hardware very effectively; it just doesn't scale well. But I think about this from time to time. Like what have we gained here besides pixels with a lot of the stuff? That might be an Adam question if he's not eating or playing video games.
Man, all right. First off, I'm gonna address the fact that the first thing you thought I was doing was eating. Like, man, I know I'm overweight and all, but like, we got to talk about that later. We gotta have words.
I mean,
Oh man.
if my camera were off, I would be eating. So I don't know why
That's
you're.
fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
For transparency, I do have a bowl of popcorn here, so
Oh, okay. See.
yeah. No, I'm kind of with you, right? Like, I've talked to a few people in recent time about this. How, if you compare your computer usage in 98 XP whenever to now, it's like it doesn't fundamentally feel all that different, right?
Right.
Like it's only when you start to reach the limits of the hardware you're on that you start to realize, oh, I need to upgrade and things are getting bloated. But how like a desktop Linux distro feels on a modern machine is how XP feels on like a period correct machine, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like, so when you realize like the software got bloated and bigger, and our fundamental experience of how fast things are, how what we expect things to do hasn't really changed all that much. If you tell some, your younger self back in the 90s, running like 95, hey, I have this machine that has 16 processors in it and it's like thousands of megahertz and all, they're like, oh man, I bet that's fast. And it's like, nah, it's just like this.
Yeah.
Like it's, like you'd be like, then why do we even bother? Like, so I'm with you. I don't quite understand. Like sometimes it's functionality, sometimes it's just extra window dressing, and sometimes it's telemetry, sometimes it's everybody just wants it to be the web, and the web sucks. Like the web was never meant to be what it is. So, yeah, it's kind of that.
Yeah. So the other thing that kind of spurs us on too is, so I did get BunsenLabs to run on a netbook, to which I've been running Tumbleweed with Plasma on it, and it runs fine. It does feel like Plasma's kind of heavy on it, but BunsenLabs feels snappy and really nice on it. I mean, as an experience. But when it comes to like using web like using the web, it's about the same one or the other. It's like, yeah, okay, it sucks either way. I'm not really getting that much more out of the web experience, really. I can, so then I think, is Plasma that much less efficient, or is it doing that many more things in the background? That's kind of what I start to think. And are there, if you look at your system processor list, like everything that's going on right now, your computer's doing a lot of stuff, just kind of automatically. You're not even thinking about it. How many of those things do we actually need? I mean, I don't know.
No, I totally get you. I mean, like I have an old PowerBook. If I load up Frog Find on it and just browse the old web through that, it's not that big a deal. It's pretty quick. But the moment I try to load a modern web page, just forget about it, right? Even on like a somewhat modern browser for it. And I don't know. I think that's really it. We kind of just get used to upgrading, and then it's very rare that you find software that you can go back on an older machine with newer versions of software and have that experience. But in that same way, it ultimately ends up being a compromise, right? Because it's like, hey, BunsenLabs runs really great on this old machine till I open a web browser. Turns out most of the things I do is in a web browser. So, it's not functional, right? But things have improved, right? Like, I don't have to wait several minutes for my machine to boot or something like that, right? Like things have improved, and the amount of sort of auto magical, connections we make with our machines, and Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, we have power management, we have multi-core processors and all this, like it's definitely improved, right? But I guess what I'm saying is like the fundamental thing I do as a user feels no different on my beast of a desktop than it does on my XP laptop, than it does on my PowerBook running Tiger, right? It all just feels kind of the same until I interact with the web, and then it all falls apart. But yeah. And actually the web is a good example of a piece of software that is always moving forward, pretty much.
Right.
And so you're like, whatever machine you're on will get left behind by the way the web works. And then you got to wonder, like, why is the web as big as it is? And yeah, not an easy question.
So I wonder if, okay, like there's some legitimate web applications like cat apps that run completely in a web browser, because in a way the web browser isn't really it's not really a web browser anymore. It's more of like an application platform, a targetable platform for applications to run in many instances. So it's different, I guess, right? Is browser not really the accurate statement or what we call it anymore?
You can think of the browser as just a terminal, right? The web would be the OS, and the web is the ultimate rolling release.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, it's just interesting. I wonder what's next. Chromebooks the future?
Oh God, no. I've never been a fan of those things.
They just don't do much locally.
You know, in the old days, during the XP era, I don't know, I can't remember when that was. When did it start? Like 2001, I think.
I think so, yeah. And ended like 2010, 2011 maybe.
So go middle of that decade, 2005. I'd be using IE or Netscape, and I would have one session open, one tab, because that's all IE, I think, allowed you to do. I would look at something that I'm hunting up information-wise, and then I'd move on to the next thing. Now, fast forward 14 years later, and yeah, so I have 971 tabs open, and just by doing that drop-down thing, I can do a search for whatever it is that I think I was looking for 2 weeks ago. And then, oh, I'd find that tab just popping up. Then I would go to that tab. So in many ways, my browser experience is more like using my own ad hoc database of things that are relatively current in my life. Now, I don't know how many people use a web browser that way, but I certainly couldn't use a web browser on an older machine this way.
No.
Despite the fact that this machine is 11 years old. So, yeah. I lied, 12 years old. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely how I use the web now is way different than how I used the web before. I have probably 30, 40 tabs open right now on my Firefox session. And I mean to get back to it, or lack thereof. And I would have never done that on a Windows 98 machine, or I couldn't do it on my Amiga back in the day when I'd browse the web in that thing. But, you know, it's definitely how we use the web is much different.
Yeah,
Good,
I don't
bad,
think
otherwise.
They had tabs back in those days. I think it was just open a new window.
Well, there were tabs in Conqueror, I mean, early 2000s when I used the web back then. I think it was the only thing that had tabs at the time. Yeah, Anna, 30. I might be underselling it. It might be conservative saying 30. I very rapidly, they'll grow very rapidly. Like I'll go down a bunny trail of things, and then when I go back to kind of clean things up, like, oh, can't close out one yet, can't close out one yet, and I kind of go back down, and I get very little done when it comes to web browsing.
My use with browser tabs is pretty obscene because I go kind of round robin depending on which level in the house I'm at. So it's a different machine in everyone, a couple at the office, one at my dad's joint, and all the Firefox tabs are synced. So if something popped into my head, did I look this up before? I can do a search across tabs that have been synced from like 6 or 7 machines and just pop it up that way. And I never really close tabs as time goes on. I can imagine there's probably about 3,000 or 4,000 tabs open when you add up the number of machines. So that's pretty stupid, isn't it?
When we were buying Vanessa's Mac, I had to make sure she got the 16-inch M3 Max so that we could give it enough RAM for all of her tabs.
It is kind of amazing how much RAM a browser will use if you have like that many tabs open.
One tab of YouTube active is nearly a gig of RAM.
Yeah.
one
I
YouTube
do sleep
tab.
my tabs, so that helps.
I think
It makes all the difference.
Yep, about 2 gigs worth of memory and tabs.
Yeah, my commit
Yep.
charge at any given, well, on this machine, Firefox, 5.8 gigs. So yeah.
So if anyone missed out or wants a netbook experience, Amazon are still selling the ePC 1000 for under $80, $78.27.
That's probably
Already
still
spent.
new in box too.
I already spent my money on an iCraig.
Like a big Craig computer.
I would totally buy a computer from Craig.
They have white and black. I almost want to get the white one because it's very white. Yeah, what would I do with that though? It's only got 1 gigabyte of RAM.
Throw Bunsen on it.
Load a single YouTube tab.
Maybe. And so
Yeah.
I do want to remark that. So Peter did share a link in the YouTube chat where he wrote a blog post on this from 2009, which looks like a website I would visit in 2009, by the way, and about your excitement of that. And that's actually where I clicked on that to get to the Amazon page. So, bravo.
I love Francois Revol's comment in chat. When my CPU's on its knees, I bookmark my oldest tab from 3 years ago. I love that. Yes. Man after my heart.
First in, last out. Yeah.
That's right. And I think Zoe Ronan said, never understood tab hoarding. So I guess let me explain it to you. So what will happen is I have an idea, and I will chase down this idea, and I'll open up a bunch of tabs as I do this, and then I will jump between those tabs, and then what will happen is whatever I'm working on at that time will be totally sidetracked with something that's more pressing. So then I don't want to close those tabs. There's 4 or 5, maybe 6, maybe 8 tabs open of something I'm researching, and so I have to jump to something new. And so I jump to that something new, again, leaving those other tabs in place, and then I work on that, which opens another 4, 5, 6, 8 tabs, and then I may or may not finish. Let's say I finish it, but I finish it quickly. It's toward the end of the day, and I haven't really documented everything because I just can't do it right now. So those tabs will remain open until I feel that I've properly closed out that project. So I've documented everything. I got the links, like in my, well, actually now Joplin, if it's work, Colin, thank you very much. And then, or if it's like a personal thing on either cubiclenate.com or my TiddlyWiki for personal notebook stuff. And then I'll move on to the next project. And so sometimes if I fail to document appropriately, or if I'm still kind of like halfway done with it, or it's just like a hanging chad of information, those tabs may remain open. So right now I have way too many tabs open because I'm also looking at like Christmas gifts for the kids, other projects that I'm kind of like starting to scope out. Also, I'm going to buy a few props for my Christmas stuff this year, since I've been working on that and trying to kind of figure those things out. So I've got a lot of things open, and then when I do that, then I'm researching something else to make sure that something else is correct. And then eventually, like when there's like a slow time, like I'm actually going to take time off around the holidays this time, I think, maybe like a day or two. I'll probably get those tabs closed at that time. So that's how that works. You know, every couple of months.
I can't work like that. I
So-
couldn't work like that with that many tabs open. I research something, then I'll bookmark it and come back to it. That's what I do. So I
I
probably end up
would
with a
wind
lot
up
of
with
wasted
millions of
bookmarking, but-
bookmarks.
Yeah, that's the problem
Yeah.
too. So I have to document in such a way
Yeah.
that it's consolidated information, because like I don't need those bookmarks necessarily, but I want them referenced. And bookmarks don't work for me because I used to operate just like that, and then I had so many bookmarks I couldn't find anything, so I had to bookmark my bookmarks. I had to index my bookmarks manually, and so that didn't work. That's actually why I went to using TiddlyWiki ultimately.
If I have a
you just
URL
make-
or
use
really
link
want to
things.
save, I will email it to himself.
Oh, that would
So the
be an even bigger problem.
Yeah.
I do
See,
that
well,
too.
you know, I understand what Nate's taking his note app and just popping notes in there with links to things and this, that, and the other things. So it's all organized in one spot.
If what so my addiction is, and I don't think it's an addiction. This is actually a pretty good workflow for me. Is simple tab groups on Firefox lets you just create groups basically of tabs. And
Mhm.
so what you end up with then is, and this is the way I use it. So each one of my customers has its own group of tabs. And then each function. So like I have a group for entertainment, a group for Linux, a group for healthcare, a group for, and so inside of those groups, then I have relevant tabs. And then how Nate was describing it, basically doing it exactly that way. So I'll have a project for a customer. I have a group of tabs for that customer. And then that way, so I can't operate with more than like maybe 15 tabs open in any one group because it just gets to be overwhelming. So, that's my approach to doing that is in having these groups that are focused on a specific either task or subject or something like that. And then to Nate's point, like when I'm done, I can just choose to flush all the tabs for that group. So I'm done with that project. I can leave the group so it's just there and empty, but then I can just flush all of the tabs and close them all out. And then I also have, to speak to the memory issue, I have a something that puts tabs to sleep. It's called auto tab discard. And if you don't use the tab for 15 minutes or something, it'll automatically put it to sleep. Basically, it just takes it out of memory. And then that way, the next time you go to it, the tab's still there, but it doesn't, it has to reload itself in order for you to start using it again. Now you can override that and say like pin tabs I don't have go to sleep, or so that, there's pretty elegant ways to use, different add-ons and things to come up with like workflows around tabs. But when I see someone that has like, and my wife does this too, where I see like 30, 40, 50, 60 tabs, I'm just like, I don't know, because they're this big. You can't even read the text that's on the tab. You know
Yep.
what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's just unusable, in my opinion. So
Yeah, I had a guy when I worked for Bank of America. That's one of my colleagues, one of the other senior techs that had been there longer than I had been. He never shut down his browser. So when it was literally all the way across those tiny little rinky-dinky tabs, but some of them were actually like you combine the tabs and you group them all together, the little group tabs. Some of those groups set up for specific things and access to specific things. And I said, well, they're just going to time out anyway. You might as well just close them off and relog in. Nope, he had this way of doing it all the way across, and I think he was the reason that Bank of America decided to upgrade all the computers from 8 gigs of RAM to 16.
Nice.
Because he kept he kept leaving those tabs open. His machine had to be struggling because it only had 8 gigs of RAM in the thing.
So he cost the company how much money?
Oh, millions and millions. Well, they decided to go when they upgraded. Finally got off. When I was hired at Bank of America, they were still on Windows 7, so they were making the move at the time to Windows 10. And so we were brought in to help with the rollout of the huge update that they were going through, because they're also moving their a lot of stuff to the cloud, like all their AD stuff and all that kind of stuff was going to the cloud, and they were doing they're no longer having the Outlook profiles and things like that on a local machine. Those are going to the cloud, and we're doing this whole big move, and the machines that they had were so outdated and old that they ended up having to replace a lot of the machines. And the ones that they did have, they had to go in, and especially with the desktops, at least they can go in and easily upgrade the RAM. But a lot of the people that had laptops, those had to just be replaced, because a lot of computers these days, it's just not easy just to upgrade the RAM. And a lot of them were not in an office; they're at remote locations, so they were going to send them the RAM to do it themselves, because half the people know what they're doing. So yeah, that was. Yep, I'm the simple when it comes to tabs. I'm more of a multiple monitor. Have a few tabs open here, a few tabs open here, a few tabs open here. That way I can see what tabs I have open and be able to go back and forth. And then sometimes like here I have my Mac on and open. Then I have the stream and the like the streams up here with the chat, and then Zoom is here. And I'm doing all the other browsing I want to do and stuff like off on the side, so I don't have to flick between tabs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think.
Nate, you mentioned.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry.
Oh, you mentioned like using a computer, and I think back to like the late '90s, early 2000s of like the web browser being such a small percentage of the time I spent on my computer. I mean, certainly, I was using it to do certain tasks, but so many of the things I was doing weren't, and I think back now, I'm like, well, what was I doing? Because now I'm so used to doing, I don't know, 80% of the things I do on a computer or in a browser. And it's like, it's almost like the computer exists just to host the web browsers, that I use to do different things. And even if it's not a browser, it's based on like browser technologies, things like that. So it is wild to kind of think back like, 20, 25 years and like, what was I doing? And it's like, well, I guess using like Office or, local email applications or games or,
Yep.
just sort of all these other pieces of software that, that's back when, it made so much more of a difference between like Windows and different systems and like what software was supported on which systems, and not only which systems, but like which versions of systems. And like, yeah, it's very, very, very different paradigm, I think, than what most people are used to now.
So
and myself included.
I was thinking about this. So depending on the different jobs that I've had over the last few years, but going back to my days of doing CAD work for a certain giant appliance company, most of that stuff was done local on that machine, but it was like CAD software. I'm thinking about the different applications I use. So it'd be CAD software, some sort of like some sort of terminal software, 3270, like IBM terminal, like accessing stuff for doing like part management essentially. And then there's your office applications, most like Lotus Notes. Anybody remember that one? That was fun.
Yeah, Lotus Notes.
My dad used to use that actually.
I think everybody did at some point.
My company used Lotus Notes for everything. They had all kinds of custom databases and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yep.
What a nightmare.
I got a fun Lotus Notes story for after show. It's not be too much of a side tangent for us to care. But anyway, so mostly like whatever the primary purpose of that computer system was, that was most of the tasks. I mean, even 20 years ago, a lot of things were web or some sort of either web or terminal based interactions with other systems. So it's not like the usage is necessarily like what has changed as much, but it's more maybe the tooling around the task itself, prophetic.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great. Hey, everybody.
Hey, everybody.
Hey,
happy post-Thanksgiving.
Prof, how you doing?
Yeah, you too.
Good. So I nerd out on this stuff like organizational stuff. So I had to hop on once I heard you guys talking about like how to organize bookmarks and whatnot. So I want to chime in on that real quick. So I use bookmarks purely for like reference-based things. Like I live in Philadelphia. Sometimes there's like some silly thing I have to like do every year. And I just bookmark something that's like reference-based. I have to go somewhere to do something, and that's might live there. But when it comes to research, and I think you guys might appreciate this considering like we're in the shopping season for the kids and everything like that. I adopted a new methodology for like that kind of stuff. Now I put it in a file, a Word document or a Google Doc right now, but you can put that into a file, and I have a whole folder, cloud folder for like research or reference, and I bookmark the folder. And so when I'm doing my research on like gifts for the kids, I can have a Word document, and within that Word document, I can have a little mini table where I can organize things and also like write notes in that, because I pick up where I left off in my brain. Like if I'm stuck between two gifts, she might like this or she might like that. I don't know. Maybe I'll ask someone, and I can like literally tag my sister. Do you think my wife will like this? Or do I tag her friends in the document, and they can have access to the document. And so like I'm using Google Docs as like this glorified bookmarking system on steroids, while also being at the same time like almost like a note-taking thing and a like a database thing, because I have a table in there. It's the weirdest thing, but it feels so like good, that dopamine hit to know that I have one thing that's like crossing off all these needs of like my brain needing input and also needing to store my thoughts while also being organized with a table all in one like file and folder. So it's been wild. I've been experimenting with it the past like 4 months, and it's been like glorious. So I might do a write-up or a YouTube video on it, but I don't know. I've been nerding out with that, so I want to chime in and share that.
Yeah,
you gotta
that's
love
fun.
you gotta love apps that let you collaborate with other people, and that way you can keep everything up to date and live.
Yeah.
So that's really good. I like that, because there's so much, because because Google is so ubiquitous, right?
Yeah.
Everyone has access, probably has a Google account, because they have just such a breadth of services. It's kind of crazy if you don't, which also is kind of scary. But anyway, that aside, let's leave that bit out.
The scary stuff aside, yeah.
Scary stuff aside, let's just go ahead and just push that aside. That's actually a really neat way to handle and to satisfy that little bit. I've tried lots of different things, and I think maybe to my own detriment have avoided just using solutions like that, just because I don't want to be so tied to Google. And
Yeah.
but maybe to my detriment, that
Well,
could be.
no, I think Nextcloud, it's been so great at maturing as a product. I think it does have the ability to share links with individuals now without having to make them a Nextcloud user. So it could be replicated pretty easily with other services that might be more like, privacy or self-hosting friendly. But the idea is there. And that was another element, was that it's cross-platform technically. You can take the same idea outside of Google Docs into other things, and it kind of works too.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, and I need to think about that now. That might actually make my life better in many of these cases.
And also with the
You could
research
probably use that. Sorry.
And that's real quick to finish that thought was like, now that's just like functional research stuff for like the family and kids. How many of us are like trying to learn 5 or 6 things at the same time? Like self-hosting AI, that's like a little like trail that I'm on. I have a whole bunch of like little mini like single board computers right next to me right here. I'm trying to learn that too. And so I'm trying to get deeper and better with like Vim and get better at Vim and the configuration files with that. And I'm like, I have a file called Vim Learning or AI Learning, self-hosted learning. And I just document my journey of like, all right, this is a cool thing. I should try this one day. And I just document my learnings there. And then when I come back to time, because as a dad, you only get so much time. When I finally go back in the seat, it's kind of like I get to pick up where I left off in my learning path, as opposed to like always coming back and recentering my brain and trying to reset all the time is kind of hard. So I pick up on those small threads of learning that makes it easier to keep it going. But it's kind of nice too.
I think that's stuff that like Nate's saying with, TiddlyWiki, that's where something like that, a system where you can very easily and add a new entry, link it to other entries,
Yeah.
use tags. I mean, I use Joplin myself a lot for note taking,
Yeah.
and I tend to use tags a lot to do sort of make the connections. I mean, you can do notebooks and sub notebooks and all that. But tags are sort of, so notebooks and sub notebooks are like very specific and like project based, I would say. Whereas tags, like if I'm doing something with AI or something like that, I'll just tag it AI, and then if I don't quite know or remember exactly like what I was thinking or where I was in some process, like I can just look at all the tags in, you know, or in a particular order, you know, and then kind of see like, oh, okay, yeah, here's where I was. So I know exactly what you're talking about, like sort of teasing out those threads of
Yeah.
of knowledge, you know.
So, I don't know maybe you heard this or not, Eric, but I've actually been using Joplin for all work stuff. So I've been moving things away from OneNote because just I've been having some reliability issues with OneNote, and
Okay.
Same.
but I have been I've been using OneDrive as the backend for Joplin. So this may be I might be
Okay.
just I may be putting bad data on top of good at this point, but it's been working more reliably than OneNote has lately, as far as it's just been a better experience. Plus the Markdown is
Well,
really
they keep
nice.
pushing OneNote more towards browser based, right? I mean, they keep that's what I was thinking. I
Yeah,
heard or was experiencing.
and it's also
yeah.
been really slow, and it's not because I'm using it on Linux
Gotcha.
with Edge. It's because it's just slow, and so also I'll update things in the browser, and the update doesn't necessarily come through right away, and so it's just kind of a mess, and I get all these like broken things.
Yeah.
So, but Joplin's been really good. Also, you actually have a client that you can use on all the platforms, so that's been really nice.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing about OneNote that has been a problem for me is the web app, the phone application, the way it organizes like everything in tiles there. So totally the opposite of how you're using it on the desktop. Like it's completely divorced. It's not even like the same application essentially. So
It's really sad.
Yeah.
OneNote.
So
I know what you mean. Yep.
So I can't use, I literally just can't use it on the phone. It's just it's like cool. There's an app. It says OneNote, and I see my data's there, but I can't find
Yeah.
what I'm looking for. So that's been really kind of tragic. Maybe they'll fix it. I hope. I don't care. It's Microsoft, so you know I don't care if I poo poo on them.
I don't know. I think the likelihood. So the nice thing about Joplin is it's just Markdown, right?
Yeah,
I mean, and
that's
that at the
exactly
end
it.
of the day,
You can copy pictures
no
in there. You
matter
can do all
what.
kinds of great things.
Yeah, I mean, and that's really it. It's just Markdown organized in a certain way with, you know, some things on top of it, but the content of the notes and all that is there, and you
Mhm.
can do things to transform it, to export it, stuff like that. Whereas OneNote, I've been squirrely about OneNote for a long time simply because, yeah, it's cool on the full client to be able to do the Canvas stuff and like, you know, create little blocks here and there and like,
Yeah,
but
really
you're right.
neat.
Like if you're using any lesser client, or I've also had issues where
Pictures
formatting
don't
will
load.
just blow up on you. Yeah, exactly. And you're just like, oh, okay, well, this is not stable enough to be reliable.
So the problem with the web client is the pictures don't load unless I click on them, and that doesn't matter. Again, that doesn't. I'm using Edge on all the platforms. Anything that's work based, I'm using Edge, and I have to click on the picture for it to bring it up, or it's like, or I, you know, like if I'm trying to skim through real quick, the information isn't there. So it's just been really it when I first started using it, I was very happy with it, and that was just a year and a half ago, a little more than that. I was very happy with it, worked very well, and that's just been a slow degradation since. I don't know what's going on. Oh, Obsidian, I looked at that too.
I was
but-
going to bring that up. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So what do you think of Obsidian?
Oh, that's not me.
I like it a lot. I think it was. I decided to give the Google Doc stuff a try, and I've been so happy with that that I just decided not to pursue Obsidian. But what if I decide to move away from Google Docs? That's going to be my next thing, and it's going to be pretty easy to replicate the workflow there, even though there's going to be some type of like buffer because I have to pay for a service to make my links shareable with other people if I wanted to do something like that. But it's Markdown, and there's some really cool, neat features within Obsidian too. That it's like if you want something more than Joplin in terms of like how, I think they have some cool like types of notes where it's like you got standard notes, but then you also got like ways to do like blocks of text that do like a lot of people who are writers tend to like Obsidian because you can do cool character layouts and linking of notes in a certain way that's really flexible for like what kind of style of writing you're doing. So if you're writing a book or a play or just general notes, even a visual, I think they have like a graph where you can see a visual of all your writings too, like pretty nice too. So it's pretty cool in that sense. So I think like Joplin on steroids, but if Joplin's working, then that's the way to stick with what works.
So Prophetic, have you ever used Notebook LM?
Yes, sir. I've
Yeah.
read some. Yeah, I've used some cool stuff with that. My wife shared with her job, like doing a podcast based on some content.
Yeah.
Straight to
Pretty
write
neat.
up, like it blew their minds.
So the reason I mention it is Notebook LM being a Google product actually has integration with the Google Drive as well as links and things. So if you were doing research for a topic or shopping or something like that, it might be useful to link your document that you're already using or add links that you find in Notebook LM, and then you can ask it various questions about the data itself, looking for comparing prices or sources or things like that. Could be pretty
Yeah,
useful. So I
I could
think
probably
Notebook
use it
LM
more.
would probably be really useful for that.
Yeah, I could definitely see myself using it more. Sometimes you forget about these tools and services, and you just have to like jog your
Yeah.
memory, like, oh yeah, I should try the solution there first. Then
And it kind of
don't
integrates
roll
into
out.
your existing workflow of doing the Google Doc.
Mhm.
You just add the Google Doc
Yep.
into the
There you
thing.
go. Yeah, that's a good reminder.
So I was just out of like curiosity, I was looking at when you talk about the blocks that Obsidian does. Very interesting. That's like
Yeah.
how. So I also use WordPress a lot for managing my notes as well. Sort of, it's my notes that go to on cubiclelate.com. When I figure something out, I publish it. This way, I can come back to it later, and I use it a lot. It's something I can very quickly just do web search for what I was thinking. I just do CubicleNate as the the keyword, and then whatever the problem was. I'm not advertising my site, but I'm just saying how I use my site. I don't use the search feature within WordPress because it's terrible. But anyway, WordPress has a REST API, which I don't even know what that means other than API, but REST sounds cool. But there's a plugin from Obsidian, so because you use the same block system that WordPress uses, you can actually publish from Obsidian into WordPress.
Oh, nice.
So now I'm thinking, could I improve my efficiency? So Joplin is for work. Sorry, Colin. Joplin's not fun. It's for work. But would it be? It's basically OneNote that works. So could Obsidian be maybe a good local client that I would run to work on? Because I don't always have internet access because just the region of the world from which I live. Would it be a good workflow then for me maybe to use Obsidian? I don't know if you remember like Michael Vash. I watched a lot of his videos in Obsidian. And I didn't see this as a feature, but I looked at Obsidian a little bit because of him. Anyway, so now I'm kind of wondering. I'm thinking, I wonder if this might be a way to, if I moved away from TiddlyWiki, not that I don't like it, but maybe it might be time to modernize my workflow a little bit. I don't know.
That was one thing I had to like make a concession, is like OneNote was I was in my happy place. It was perfect for me. I literally had every type of note-taking capacity there. And once it started degrading because of the cloud stuff, Windows 8, it really started with like Windows 8 when they started making those variations of OneNote. It started like really going downhill. That eventually I just had to bite the bullet and say OneNote is done for me. I had an orphaned session, if you believe it, where my OneNote notebook was orphaned. It was not associated with my account, my work account. It got missed and of course Microsoft was never going to like help me out with that.
No.
And so it was only found on my phone. And so I had to literally one by one, hundreds and hundreds of notes, one by one, export each note that I felt was worth exporting into like a PDF or a text doc. And of course those docs get murdered if they have like some type of image or some type of like PDF associated with it. If it was like a PDF printout, remember how you can kind of print right into OneNote, which is kind of nice. So I got like a shell, what I used to have, and I just made peace with the fact that I had to have individual microservices, I guess you can say. And that's, I think, where you're thinking of Joplin for work and Obsidian for your personal work slash knowledge base. I think that's the best way to go because you're getting the best tool for the use case context.
Right.
And I think we just have to accept the fact that, yeah, it sucks having multiple accounts for something, but if you make those delineations in your mind, this is for that, that's for this, and make peace with that, you're going to be so much more happier. And I think your workflow will definitely benefit from it.
Well, I mean, I already do that with browsers. So I use, because we're a Microsoft shop, I use Edge for everything work, and then everything personal is Firefox. And then it was an application that Eric brought up here on Linux Saloon, I think last year or maybe the year before. I think it was last year. This Junction, for when you click on something, you can actually route what browser or what you want to go to. So if I have an email,
cool.
yeah. So I wrote an article on CubeConnect.com, but I wrote it's just a flat pack, simple application. But so like if I get a so I've been experimenting with different ways of getting around using Outlook a little bit, using like Kmail, which works great when it works great, but when it doesn't work, it's very frustrating. So anyway, put that aside. So if I click on a link for work, I can just route it to Edge, and if it's a link for personal stuff, I route it to Firefox, and I keep those and those two worlds stay separate. Although I do have a Firefox profile because Firefox does some things just different, better in some cases than Edge for like the VMware. Edge does not do VMware very well. Edge does VMware pretty dirty, but Firefox does it really well. So just as far as like the UI is just screwed up in Edge. So that's really the only reason. Oh, there's like one other reason, but anyway, that's an aside. So yeah, there's having those separations is good because then I can, keep things a little bit better organized. Although there's a lot of crossover when basically my job and my hobbies have a lot of crossover too. So there's that. But I want to bring up Peter. Says you may get kicked out if you say that a lot of your notes are on Google Keep. I actually used to use Google Keep all the time. That was like my go-to for a long time when I worked for a Google shop, where everything was Google Office, and that was absolutely. I think that worked really well. I mean, I use it for like, anyway, you can share notes and checklists and everything else with people too, and that's really handy. And so no, that's
playing around. Don't worry, I don't keep my password file on there. So,
well, if you do, just share it with me. It'll be fine.
So actually, it's a bit of a digression for a second. So, but I started on Joplin because I was sick of Evernote, and I'd been using Evernote for a very long time. And for a very long time, it was a pretty simple, straightforward app. And really, the genius of it was it just let you have a a sort of centralized way to take notes on your phone, on your tablet, on your computer. It was sort of one of those early pieces of software that had a cloud concept, right? Where you were hosting it on someone else's system. And so that was great for a decade, maybe even longer. And then it just started to, the end poopification, whatever you want to call it. Like they just kept adding more and more crap to it, right? And I mean, I get that they were trying to monetize it and ingratiate themselves to like businesses and stuff like that. But I mean, me as just an end user, it got to be really like tedious to use. It was really bad performance. And anyway, so I was like, how the heck do I get, at that point, probably close to 15 years worth of data out of this system? And you could, in true like corporate fashion, you can install the Windows only client on an install of Windows, and then synchronize the database down locally, and then from there you can export a very specific sort of proprietary format, and then have this like database file. And then I was like faced with, okay, what note apps will actually import this thing and give me a way to maintain the folder structures and the dates and all that kind of stuff. And Joplin was one of the few that did that natively. And so I started using Joplin by exporting everything that I had in Evernote out to Joplin, which was awesome because at the time, like that was all of my stuff was in there basically. And so that let me start, and really again, because only a few applications allowed that, that was sort of like how I picked Joplin. And it just happened to be that from there, I really have enjoyed using it for, a ton of different reasons. Mainly because of Markdown, and also because the plugins and like add-ons are really good too. So anyway, it's that those types of decisions can, it was really a non-decision. It was kind of like, well, I have so few choices, like which one can I actually use? And yeah, that's how I ended up using it.
Yeah, I
But
can,
just
that seems like a very, very logical, natural progression there, from one to the next. Because
Yeah.
I also used Evernote, but I had a problem because the Linux support was really bad. But I don't remember why it was.
oh yeah,
I don't remember what it was specifically now. It's been too long, but I used it quite a bit, and then I just started using TiddlyWiki. Actually, is what I went to, and I manually copied all my, all 16 of my notes or whatever it was that I had at Evernote at the time.
I had probably 600, so it was just
Oh.
like, yeah, that wasn't gonna happen. But I think, looking at Obsidian, and I've played around with it a little bit, I think it just has so many, between a Kanban board and then the canvases and the notes and the daily note and the graphs and sort of, it kind of, in a command palette, like it's sort of got the high notes of all of the note applications that I use. And I think if I was really serious about, like if I was in school or if I was doing something that really required diligence in terms of like creating notes and stuff, I probably would be using something like that, or TiddlyWiki or something along those lines. Just something that would allow me to have a very specific process that I could follow diligently, so that everything was sort of where it needed to be. Because that's been the truth of note-taking apps for me is that I'll dabble and I'll use one for a certain amount of time, and then the new shiny will pull my attention somewhere else, and now I've got, 8 different note applications with different data in them. And like you said, maybe there's 6 notes, and I'll just copy those over and start again. But yeah, I think note taking is one of those like evergreen topics where like anyone who's involved with like management, IT, product stuff, like you're just constantly looking for a good solution or the next like better solution or whatever.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Seems
And
like it, at least.
I did get called out by Sean. He said, "Modernized workflow. Words I never thought I'd hear Cubicle Nate say." I'm not sure what he's trying to get at with that. I don't know if that was a dig. I mean, well done.
Maybe you're supposed to be
nonetheless.
using the Commodore 64 for all this stuff.
Well, now that's the next step. Can I get Obsidian to run on a Commodore 64?
There you go.
That'd be the cat's pajamas right there. I mean, it's all, yeah. It's all very interesting stuff. Oh my gosh, look at the time. We got to talk about next week. Holy cow, totally lost track of time. Way to go. I literally had not been watching the clock at all. So, there we go. That's what happens, I guess. All right. So quick housekeeping. There won't be a Linux Saloon next week. My son is, unless something changes, which today I heard my son said that maybe he's in this First Robotics Lego League, not Lego League, but the First Robotics thing. I don't know if it's a club. I don't know what to call it. They meet at a school. It's not part of school curriculum, but the school does anyway. So he's got a robotics thing that he does. He's very excited. He's a programmer. He's got this fire about it, and the competition, next competition, we had one like last week. The next competition is in Big Rapids, Michigan. So So it's like a 2.5 hour drive. And I don't know that I want to do Linux Saloon and drive at the same time. I know that sounds like I'm
That would
such
be
a
very complicated.
yeah, it
Dangerous.
would be. I mean, I did pay for the service so I can have like internet in my van now because I'm in it enough. So it's like it's built into it and it's got a really good signal, even though like where my phone doesn't get it, it actually gets it. So that's pretty cool. But I don't want to do that. I don't think I can manage this and driving, like reading the chat and driving. Probably not the best idea, I'm thinking. So anyway, so no Linux Saloon next week. The week after that, it'll be a news flight night.
All right.
And anyway, so unless something changes, don't plan on a Linux Saloon next week. But if something does change, I'll make an announcement, like if whatever. But don't plan for next week. And then I'll have a Christmas tree up in here also, the week after that, because it's time for that.
Yeah.
Ooh,
It's something that'll never be up in my house, a Christmas tree.
well, yeah, you live in Florida. They don't have pine trees in Florida. You don't have.
I don't even know. It's because of those things back there.
Oh yeah,
Cats.
Yeah,
shiny.
they love Christmas trees. Why wouldn't you get them one?
Because no.
Come on,
They would just shred it, be a mess everywhere.
that sounds like fun. I don't know what the problem is here.
They have enough things to shred. I mean, come on, they got fed bacon today. That's how spoiled they are.
Oh, my cat doesn't like bacon.
Oh, my cats love bacon.
My cat likes to wake me up by staring at my face. I think she wants to eat me.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay.
Nate.
Yeah.
We were gonna do a little bit about my next update.
Yep.
on that.
We'll have to do it real quick. So anyway, if you have any suggestions for Linux Saloon, please feel free to share those. I do have a Linux Saloon calendar as well. That has been updated, so you can check that out if you wish. But if you have any distribution suggestions or application, poll ideas, contact me however way you'd like to, through the emails, the Telegram, suggestions at linuxsaloon.com, or you can go find me on the Telegram or the Discord. But I'm really bad about checking Discord. I'll do better. That's my New Year's resolution will be to check Discord at least once a day. I'll probably break it by January 2nd. But anyway, so we'll do a quick community free pour. If we go a little over.
This one won't be insanely
So-
long, I hope.
Well, I mean, it might be insanely.
Well, either way, so folks, the announcement you've been waiting for weeks about StormOS has finally hit tonight. We have a updated ISO in the works of the XFCE edition. I'm working on it right now, building it, etc. And also, we did try out Fish Shell as the main shell in the terminal, but sadly, in my testing, that has gone completely derailed. I couldn't get the config loaded over. So we are going back to Bash as the official shell going forward. Also, Nate, you're going to want to hug me for this, and you're going to
It'll have to
know
be.
why in a
It'll have to
moment.
be an e-hug though. An e-hug.
Yeah, that's fine. Whatever.
Yeah.
But as of tonight, after the show, you guys, the KDE edition starts its development. So,
Neat.
Nate, your beloved Plasma is coming to StormOS as a separate ISO as of tonight, my friend.
Well, fantastic.
Yes, and I know you're looking forward to having that one. So either way, I can't give an ETA as usual on because I don't want to set any false expectations to you guys. But very soon, you will have your precious KDE Plasma on StormOS.
Well, fantastic. That's good to hear.
Yes, and the next ISO will be, for the XFCE version at least, will be up very soon, and that's just something I wanted to bring to y'all's attention. So, yeah.
Sweet. Well, fantastic. Good to hear. I'm glad you're still working
Either
on it.
way, so
And I
I'll
think
let you take us out.
I think Peter made a comment that you've been working on this for 20 years now. So this is like
No,
like a
no,
fine
no,
wine.
no. 20 years, Peter. No, this is only going on since 2018.
Oh, okay. So 20 years. It's close enough.
Maybe, yeah, going on 6, 7 years, I want to say. Something like that. So,
Well, good deal. Well, thanks for the update. And it does mean that we
and
are
hopefully next week the update will be a bit more climactic.
well, 2 weeks. All right. Well, good deal. Well, thank you very much for sharing. Appreciate it. I'm always excited to see you excited because
Yeah, for the KDE. Yeah.
well, I just mean in general. You know, I like seeing people's enthusiasm. So that's good. Because what is the point if we're not having fun with technology, right? All right, what is that time for last call? Last call. So I don't have anything else. I know Peter. I just want to bring up again. You're now officially a podcaster. You have a new label you can hang on your chain, a gold chain that you wear with all the things that you do.
Yeah, so I thank Rocco and you.
I don't know if I'd thank me. Maybe Rocco. Rocco would be the guy to thank. So yeah, check that out. Hacker Public Radio. So the link will be in the show notes. I know Eric. I don't know if you got anything exciting going on that you'd like to share with the class, or not. That's fine. You don't have to. So Jason, no stream tomorrow. Dave said that he's putting up Christmas decorations.
Yep. He's got to do his. I mean, shucks. But life happens.
It does. And then you're gonna be putting up a Christmas tree tomorrow then too. So that's awesome. Glad to hear that.
Nope.
That's what you say.
I haven't had a Christmas tree in 20 years. We still have a Christmas tree. We still have a Christmas at my sister's house anyway. So she has like 8 trees at her house. That's enough.
I gotcha. So he only trolled a little bit in the chat, but Steve's very own. He's a regular YouTube, Twitcher, stream guy. He doesn't stream like the young kids do, showing off their guns or whatever. But he does do neat stuff. He's got some neat features. Apparently they're only working on the YouTube side, not the Twitch side, but whatever. So check that out. Steve's very own. He's got 8:30 a.m. Central Sunday for sure, then sprinkled throughout the week. I missed his stream today, by 5 minutes. I don't know what I was doing, but I wasn't watching the YouTubes. I'm at a podcast called Linux Out Loud. We're probably going to record this week, so be on the lookout for the next Linux Out Loud. I've got 2 fantastic co-hosts, Matt and Wendy. They have a lot of fun. I have a website called keepinglate.com. I do things sometimes. So Linux Saloon is part of the Tux Digital Network. Check out more great shows at tuxdigital.com. I want to thank you all for your support, however you do it, being a part of the conversation, both YouTube meeting here or on the Zoom meeting or on the YouTube stream. Yeah, that's it. As well as everyone watching the show after the fact. And your comments are great. Even if you say I did a terrible job doing something, that's fine. I'll try and do better next time. I want to thank you all. I want to thank everyone involved in making the Linux and open source tools possible for us to not only have this conversation, but also to have fun and enjoy our technology. Linux truly puts personal back in a personal computer. Thank you for stopping by. Be sure to tip your developers, and please remember to Linux responsibly. Until next time, see yous.